Hi there, and welcome back to one of my episodes of talking about photography. My birthday was a few weeks ago and I got a Holga. Not a normal Holga though, because that one, as you know and as you've seen on this channel, I already have one. But a very different one, which divides my opinion a lot. I got myself a Panoramic HOLGA, and I've been looking at it for at least a few weeks, if it would be worth to have it or not, until I decided that, yeah, it is. So, my first impression is it's a regular Holga, just a little bit wider, as you can see. As a matter of fact, I'm going to open it for you to see. So it's the same lugs that you have on the ordinary Holga. It's the same way to open the Holga. And this one comes with a mask for 35mm, but I never used 35mm. As a matter of fact, I'm abandoning 35mm, so I'm sticking up to medium format and big format. And yeah, this is a Holga, but much wider. This one has light leaks coming in from the top and probably from here as well. I will need to address these at a later row. But I'm very divided on this camera, because this is supposed to be a toy camera. But for the price that this one is, it's a bit too expensive for a toy camera. This is in the early 100s, 115, 120 euros, which is very expensive for what it is. But it has this characteristic, this quality of a Holga in a much bigger format. So I'm very divided, because you cannot use this for professional shooting because the professional qualities are just not there. It's plastic, everything, plastic here. The final image is very doubtful, to say the least. And yeah, it's a Holga on steroids, basically. Yeah, that's it, a Holga on steroids. But it's actually quite astonishing what you can do with one of these cameras. And the look of it, it's absolutely unique. I'm going to show you. Do you see what I mean? It's this really wide Holga look into it that stays really nice on the frame and the photo. Now, going back to the first frame that I show you, let me show you what I was seeing on the viewing screen. And this was my composition. I strictly did not want the buildings on the left to be on the frame. But the viewing screen is one thing, what you get on the image is another one. This is another big problem that this Holga has. What you see is not what you get. For instance, on this shot, this was the composition that I was aiming for on the viewfinder. But this is not what I got as an image. It's still very good, but I would prefer to be a little bit more cropped. So this is one of these quicks and perks that the camera has, that you need to be creative and to get around it. But this is not the only problem that the camera has. Let me show you. But before showing you the problems, let me show you the reason why I created this title. And you're going to see why there are two hot shoe flashes and why are they linked to the focusing system of the Holga. You see, the Holga has 4 modes to focus. You have a bloke. The bloke has a family. They all belong to a gang, probably called the Holga Outlaw Gang or the Holga Lawless Motorcycle Brotherhood, the Holga Brotherhood, that's it. And this is their lair. So it's all linked. The bloke has a family, they all belong to a gang, and they all have a lair where they all do these schemes and they deal with drugs and whatever. So why the 2 hot shoe flashes? Very simple. Imagine that you're photographing and by chance you happen to stumble on the lair. The whole gang comes out, the family and the bloke go there to mug you, and you need to have enough firepower to do this. And while they are completely blind with a flash that you created with 2 flash guns, you're free to go. But jokes apart, let's go and let's see the very first problem that this camera has. And let's start with 35mm, because she also shoots with this mask 35mm in a panoramic way. Let me open this, let me show you. So, Holgas and duct tape, they go together. One is the complement of the other one. Here you take this spool out and you need to first take the 120 mask like this. There are people who prefer to shoot 120 like this, giving a wider range, but I figure out that this causes scratches on the base of the film, which is just not worth it. So 135. You pick up this one and you install it like this. It clicks into place. And now you can put a cassette. And let's put my test cassette. Fits there, neat. You put a normal spool in here and you fit the spool. You probably have some tape and you pull this one out and you tape it over here, and then you can start winding. Issue number 1. The image goes outside the sprockets but does not occupy the full length of the film. So it stops just a little bit above the sprockets, which it's you know, I can only say this as, you know, meh. It should go all the length. I mean, occupy the whole film, not just, you know, above the sprockets, and that's it. It should occupy everything. Now, issue number 1. When you put the film like this, and then you cover it, this little red window lets the light in. So you need to cover the red window as well. So you need to cover all this here and the red window. Now you don't see a thing. So if you're advancing the film, you're advancing blindly. There is no film counter whatsoever. I figured this out and I realized that you can do 2 turns and a half, just to be sure, 2/3 and 3/4, and you're free and you're good to go. So for instance, if this symbol is here, you do 1 turn, 2 turns, 2 and a half, 2 3/4, and you can shoot it again. Now, issue number a lot is that when you get to the end of the film, there is no rewind crank. So you're stuck. And either you have a changing bag with you, or you have access to a dark room and you can, you know, just remove the things and put the film back into the cassette. You end up with what we call the Portuguese mono. That means no value whatsoever. I mean, you lose the camera, that's it. Once you get to the end of the roll, there's nothing else you can do. And that's for 135. Let's continue with the things that this camera has. So let's remove this mask and put the normal mask. This button here on this camera does absolutely nothing. I tried it already opening and see if this changes as in the aperture. It doesn't. It's the same aperture. So it's just a button that is there to fool us. Another thing which is very, very bad with this camera is the following. So imagine you're shooting 120 film. You have this closed, and here you advance to number 1. And you put the number 1 here. You cannot advance from number 1 to number 2. If you're advancing from number 1 to number 2 and then to 3 and 3 to 4, 5 to 6 and so on, you're just shooting images on top of images and all together till the end. So you need to shoot odd numbers. But no one tells you this. I had to figure it out by myself. So I do 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and that's it. And that's the full roll, 6 shots. That's it. The viewfinder over here, well, it's what I said to you. What you see is what you don't get, because the shot is much wider than what is shown here. Well, two hot shoe flashes. I don't know if mine work. I never tried it. Putting here a €300 flash on this camera, it's nah. It's just no. This level here is on the wrong side, of course. It's not very practical to be here. It should be somewhere here in the middle, so you can more or less. It's really weird. Well, it makes sense on the Holga to have things that don't work and in weird places. The lugs, they sometimes get out of place. If you're not very careful, they jump away from the camera and you get an exposed film. But apart from all the problems and everything that I told you, it's still a Holga, and it still has the characteristics of a Holga in a wider shot. And I have to say, there's 300 problems. But the one advantage of shooting the Holga, of that characteristic of the Holga, beats all the problems that you can find, because the problems put you to test to find a solution so that you can shoot with it and you can take wonderful pictures with it, which is perfectly doable. If you think that you need gaffer tape to close all this here in the back, if you think that you can do 2 turns and a half, just to be sure, 2 turns and 3/4, and this just works. It's a really good camera. I still prefer my original Holga, because although this one has a flash and it doesn't work, this one is, I don't know, probably never worked. I bought it second-hand and I'm sure it just never worked. But I prefer the 6x6 format, what the Portuguese call 1x1. And I prefer this image over a wider image, because there's a lot of distortion on the, if you see the image, there's a lot of distortion on the corners. The center is fairly sharp, but easily gets blurred out really soon. And well, it's a characteristic of the camera, of the Holgas. But I still prefer this one. And look, this one has the bloke who has a family, belongs to a gang, and they have a hideout. It's all the same. If you know how to operate with this one, you know how to operate with this one as well. Is it worth to have this camera? And I would say yes, it is. It's the cheapest panorama camera that there is, and it really takes panoramic shots. It's somewhat sharp in the center and very soft in the corners, and it works. It's fun to use. There's a couple of perks in relation to this one that you need to be careful, namely the frame counter, that you need to cover while you're doing 135 film, or that you need to see its frame 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and well, yeah, it's actually worth to have this camera. If you don't shoot medium format that often and you like panoramic cameras, go for it. I say if you don't shoot medium format that often, because this will only give you half of what this does. So it's a bit expensive, but it's worth, believe me. So many thanks for watching this video till the end. I will see you on the next video, or as we say in Portuguese, até a próxima.